Welcome to the show, everybody. I am sitting here with Dwan Bent Twyford, the host of the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. Dwan, it's great to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks, Jase. I'm so excited to be on your show today.
Awesome. Well, obviously from the title of your podcast, you can kind of get, what it's about. But before we get into your journey into podcasting, just give us a brief rundown. Who's your target market or audience for your podcast?
So I teach people what I do is I'm a real estate investor, and I do a lot of training and teaching and mentoring. So my target would really be any person that is like, I'm tired of my job, or I'm buried in school debt, or I can't retire.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to do a little fix and flip. And every week, Dwan tells us what to do and how we can make money and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm finding that most of my listeners are like 35 to 55. Okay. Is like who's watching the most. And I think that the 35, the younger end of that are people that are like, okay, well, I want to buy a house. I got my degree. I'm working a job and I'm not making squat for money. It's not what I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. I feel the people at the other end are like, holy cow, I'm going to be in my 60s pretty soon and I can't retire.
Yeah.
So it's like somewhere in between. Now I have, younger and older listeners. But when you look at my demographics, it's like 35 to 55.
Yeah. I would imagine the same crowd that watches HGTV would be a listener to your podcast that wants to take that into action.
Yeah. Because on every show, I teach and I do like seasons. We'll talk for, a couple of months about rehabbing, just about rehabbing. And then we'll talk for a couple of months about how to wholesale houses. Mm-hmm. And then we'll talk for a couple months about doing something called a subject 2. So I dive into the topic deep enough that if someone was to just listen and then maybe they couldn't afford to buy home training programs or something, they could actually take the knowledge from the podcast and go start making money.
Yeah. Awesome.
So that was kind of my concept, was like, I love to teach anyway. And I thought, hey, this is just a bigger audience, more people, I can teach and talk.
Yeah. So did you have your business outside of podcasting? You have that before you started your podcast, or did the podcast kind of launch a business?
No, I have actually been a real estate investor for 30 years. I've been teaching at seminars and workshops and trainings for over 25. I've written 3 bestsellers. I've been on Fox and Friends, MSNBC. I've been on all kinds of TV shows as a expert, celebrity expert, I guess is what they call me. Yeah. And my husband and I do a lot of live workshops. So we do a lot, usually maybe 20 a year. We do live workshops because I think my biggest goal is to help other people become financially free.
Sure.
Because I started off in real estate. I was a super dead, broke, single mom going through a divorce. I'd been fired from Denny's, and I had no job skills, no nothing. And I took a chance and got into real estate investing, which looking back, I don't know whatever possessed me to do something so bold, because I literally had no experience. I didn't know what I was getting myself in. I thought I was going to be decorating houses. And I was rehabbing houses. So I have built a giant multi-million-dollar business in the real estate investing, speaking at big events, all of that. And then, so I turned 62 years ago. So I'm 62 right now.
Okay. You don't look 62.
Well, thank you. I'll take that. I feel like I look pretty good. So I'm coming up on 60, and I was like, and not that I was not bored, but I've been teaching seminars for decades. Mm-hmm. And I've been writing books for decades. And it's it's just kind of more of the same. Yeah. But not that I didn't love it or not happy with it. And I started listening to different podcasts, and I thought, well, gosh, I could do that. I could get on. I got 30 years of experience. I could talk about real estate till the cows come home. Yeah. And it could just feel like a really fun, just a fun thing for me to do, like a new chapter or something to freshly start off my 60s. And that's what I did. And now this is becoming a big thing too.
Awesome. So how long ago was the podcast then?
So I started in, let's see, so this is 20, so I guess 2019 is when I turned 60. So I launched my first one right around my 60th birthday. So about 2 years, my birthday's in February. So approximately 2 years ago from now. I don't actually have, oh, let's see, hold on. I might have my actual first date right here. My very first one. Oh, I have the notes for it right here, but I don't have the date. It would have been around January, February, 2 years ago.
Okay.
So I did, and I really was nervous because I know I'm clear on what I know and what I'm teaching, but I was like, oh, I don't know, this podcast, I don't know, what if everybody hates it?
Yeah.
But I think I had the same fears everybody has. What if nobody listens? What if nobody likes it? What if everybody hates it? What if they're like, people don't like my pink hair? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting because of your background being live seminar, leading those and teaching prior to podcasting. You would think that you would have, not that barrier to that fear of, will people like this? Because, people are already listening to you, whereas somebody, Joe Schmo off the couch starting a podcast would be like, has the same fears. But it's good to hear that you still had it, even though like you have been on, these big publications and starting something new.
I actually, from the time I decided that from the day that I was like, you know what, I'm going to put out a podcast. It just like I see all the time in all these groups I'm in, it was a year before I put the first one out, because I'm very confident on my skills to get up in front of a stage in front of 10,000 people and tell you all about real estate investing. I had an infomercial back in the 2000s. I sold 500,000 programs.
Wow.
I know that.
Yeah.
But the podcast was like, well, it's really different, and there's so many hundreds of different topics, and do I get lost in the mix? And are people going to be like, oh, wonderful, yeah, I know her, hey, I've been listening to her over here? Because it really is like starting from scratch. And so I was really nervous, and I thought about it for a really long time. I prayed about it, and I took a couple classes, a couple podcasts, like how to start your podcast. I took some classes and invested some money in the classes, because I know as a real estate investor, my most successful students invested money in one of my training programs to go on to become millionaires. So I took classes for a couple months, and then I was just like, I'm just going to do it. Let the heck with it. The knowledge is solid, and I don't know if I fit into the podcast world, but I have nothing to lose.
Yeah. So in your first 90 days of launching, if you can remember back, 2 years ago, you probably had some sort of expectation of before launching. Did the first 90 days, did it meet your expectations? Was it a lot harder than you thought, a lot easier than you thought? Or what was that like?
I think I was okay. I didn't really know what to expect because I didn't really know any other podcast people at that time. I knew a few people here and there that were doing podcasts, but I just didn't have anyone to say, like, what does your show do? And how many downloads are you getting? And so I didn't have anything to compare it to. So my first couple of months, I had like 1,000 downloads. And I was like, woo, wow, that's awesome. Yeah. I think I'm killing it, but I don't know. I didn't have anything to compare it to. So I felt like that was a lot. Yeah. And there's that that page called toppodcast.com where they kind of rate you. And when you first come out, your algorithm goes up crazy. And like within a month, I was like number 4. And I was like, oh my God, I'm number 4. And then, as you keep going week by week, and maybe people don't come back, and I'm falling down the chart, and I dropped out of the top 200. And I'm like, I suck. Everybody hates me. I was all the way up there, and then I'm all the way down here. But I also realized I emailed everybody, sent out a big launch, and it shot me up for a second, and then boom, here I'm down here now. I was like, oh, I'm a failure.
So how big was your email list when you were launching?
I just sent out probably 4,000 or 5,000 emails.
Okay.
and said, hey, I'm doing this podcast, tune in. So my numbers kind of shot right up like real quick and then, down, because now you've got people that have to subscribe and they have to start getting back on. They have to start listening. And so that kind of like crushed my soul a little bit. I was like, whoa, look at that. I'm so far from the charts. And then like, I'm off the chart completely. I don't know what happened. I must suck. I had a lot of insecurity.
Did you continue to use email then to like each time you released an episode and it just got less and less effective? Or was it pretty much just, hey, this is here. If you want to follow, go now. And then you didn't talk about it and email it again?
I didn't want to email my list like everything. I'm one of these people that doesn't like to beat up my email list. Like I subscribe to people that send you like 4 emails a day. And, within a week or two, I unsubscribe because I hate that. Yeah. I feel like they're literally like raping their list. And so I did not want to do that.
Yeah.
So I just kept putting them out. And then I would always ask at the end of every podcast, and I still do today, if you learned one single thing or you laughed or you had a good time, please subscribe, give me 5 stars, give me some ratings. I can't be number 1 without you. I need you to help us, Yeah. So I started asking my podcast audience, and then I started running some ads on Facebook, like a new podcast to come out, and I'd put a little link of what it's about and, spend like, $20 on an ad. Yeah. So I started running some ads on Facebook. And now I have some ads on Instagram, ads on Facebook. And now I do actually email my list each week when I have a new episode come out.
Okay.
But not every week, because I do a lot of webinars and I just don't want my list to be like beat to death, from that. And I mostly just really tell people, like, and that's why I say, if you had fun, if you laughed, if you learned one thing, just anything, I just want you to go and give me a rating and write a review and just let me know that, that you're in this with me. Yeah. And then my numbers just start growing and growing, and little by little by little. And now I'm cracking 100,000. Probably this week. And I even asked you, I was like, well, I don't even know if that's good. And you're like, oh no, you're in the top 15%. And I'm like, really? Okay. I can take that because I don't have anyone to compare it to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing about podcasting stats, is they're so like non-transparent with everything that it's hard to understand where you're at.
Yeah. I have people that tell me, oh, I have 250 downloads every single solitary week. But then they bitch about how they're like barely eking by. And I'm like, well, if I had 250 downloads a week, I'd be over the moon,
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So everyone, so I just don't know.
Yeah. So where are you at right now then for like downloads per episode or per month?
I guess I should have looked at all those numbers before I got on the call with you. I don't know. I think each one of my episodes, I've had as many as like 1,500 per episode. I put out 10 episodes a month now. So I started off just doing every Tuesday, it's the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. Every Tuesday, teaching real estate. And then I started noticing everybody interviews people. So I only started interviewing people this month of March.
Okay.
I never interviewed her. I just I get on there and I think I'm great. So I'm just like, I'm going to teach you what I know, and I have fun, and I got a fun background. And so I have never had a guest. So I thought, okay, well, everybody's having me on their show. And then I'm finding out a lot of the shows only have guests. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I should incorporate that.
Yeah.
And so now, and then my husband, he also is a real estate investor, and he's really strong on like scripts and how to talk to homeowners and banks and the things that people in real estate investing are afraid of. It's kind of his strong point. So I started doing a little 15-minute called Investing on the Go. So Bill's like, okay, you're in your car, you're driving for dollars, and you see this, here's what you do. Just a real quick little thing. And then God started putting it on my heart to put out a Bible study. So every other Sunday, I do a business by the book. So we take what the Bible says about how to run a business, treat your employees, and so I do that.
Sweet.
So now, this month of March, that puts me at 10 episodes a month because I have 2 business by the books every Tuesday. Those 4 Tuesdays is a wonderful of just me. Every other Thursday is Inside the Minds of Today's Millionaires, and I'm interviewing other people, and not even in real estate, any genre, just people who are successful that will share their climb to success in the most detailed and personal way.
Yeah.
And then I have 2 Saturdays with my husband. So it gives us 10 a month now, starting this month. So I'm curious to see, like 3 months from today, where my numbers will go.
Sure.
Because before it's just been Tuesdays.
Okay.
That's only 30 minutes.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you right, the first couple months you said you had like 1,000 downloads and you were, ecstatic about that. Now it sounds like you're getting about 1,500, per episode. Or was that per month?
No, episode.
Okay.
But so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I look at my numbers and, they first come out and I'll see like, 25. And then I'll look the next day and it'll be like 200. And then I'll look the next day and it'll be like 600. And I'm like, hey, okay. So I don't know that people are clearly tuning in every Tuesday exactly at 3:00.
Yeah.
But they're listening.
They have a routine of when they
so
listen to your podcast.
My numbers are growing. My numbers, so I don't hit a bunch of numbers on the day it releases. It's more like over the next 7 days, those numbers will climb pretty solid.
Yeah.
So I'm like, come on, guys, tune in Tuesday at exactly 3:00. People are working.
Yeah, they have lives too,
And they have lives. And, and we start the podcast off. We have drinks with Dwan. So I'm like, hey, cheers. Let's all have a glass of wine. And I realize not everybody can sit down at 3:00 on Tuesday and have a glass of wine either. So.
Yeah. So when was it, or how long into the podcast where you're like, I just realized that I made money from this?
Okay, so I started making some sales off of my home study courses, my programs, because I send everyone to my website. I say, hey, go to dwanderful.com and look at the store, and I've got programs on short sales and wholesaling and fixing and flipping. And so I just always tell people at the end of every show, just go to dwanderful.com. So I started just getting like a random sale here and there, and I was not running any kind of a webinar or running any kind of a promotion. So I was like, I thought, oh my God, that must have come from the podcast. Yeah. And my programs are $997. There's $1,000. Okay. So all of a sudden,
that's like a course type of.
Yeah, so like a full real estate investing, A to Z, home study, boot camp, calls, a little bit of mentoring. And so maybe maybe the 3rd month, I got like a $997 just randomly one. It was on Tuesday though. I thought, I think that's a podcast sale because I'm not running any specials at all. Yeah. And then I started noticing every several days a sale would pop in. I was like, okay, so people are going over there and they are looking at my sales page and they're listening and they're thinking, okay, well, I like her style. I'm going to invest in a couple of her programs. And so then I was going along for about maybe 8 months or so. And somebody called up and they found me and they called me and they said, I want to buy your apprentice training. Well, my apprentice training is $30,000. And just like that, we had a conversation for 10 minutes. And they spent $30,000 and they bought my apprentice training. And so I was like, I cannot believe I just sold my apprentice training off of a podcast. Yeah. How's that possible?
So
I was like out of my mind.
Yeah. So they spent 10 minutes with you on the phone and purchased a $30,000 product.
So they had listened to all my podcasts. It's a family, Kenny and his wife, and they have 3 kids. And they want to work this as like my family, like we have me, my husband, and my 3 kids, and we all work in the real estate investing industry. My kids own rentals, And Kenny and his wife have 3 kids, but they're all in high school. Yeah. So they want their kids to become real estate investors opposed to going to college. So I guess they found me and they found my Facebook page, and then they went and listened to all of my shows, all of them up to that point, and called and said, listen, we heard you talk about your apprentice students. We want to do that. How much is it? So I told them, like, okay, we want to do it. And I was thinking, like, just like that. Like, you know, and they're like, no, we've been listening and learning, and we want to do it. And so that for that training, we actually, my husband flies to their house and works with them for 2 days, like really one-on-one, takes them out in the field and like hammers real estate into their brain.
Yeah.
And then they get a year of coaching, and the family sits around at night and they listen to podcasts and they read our programs and they do it as a family.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so I can sell an apprentice training off a podcast.
Yeah, that's so cool.
I never even occurred. It never, honestly, God, Jase, it never even occurred to me someone would spend that kind of money without meeting me or being at a 2 or 3 day workshop and getting to know me. So it stunned me.
Has that happened again since then?
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
So a few others, and then I just started noticing more and more of these 997 sales, and I'm like, gosh, people they're listening, and I'm sure that, I mean, they could be listening to just one and doing it, because some people just like to buy anything.
Yeah.
You know, those seminar junkies will buy it every seminar in the world and never crack the first book. But my database started growing of people going to my website and opting in. So my database grew by like 10 or 15,000 people. And I thought, well, they have to be coming from the podcast.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not, at that moment, I wasn't like promoting anything real specific. And then I do one webinar a month for a decade. I've been doing one webinar a month. And then I started noticing my webinar sales are getting higher. And I'm like, it has to be from the podcast thing as well. So, but I didn't start the podcasting off to make money on the people. I just wanted a new, fun, exciting project that was just mine. And because my husband and I work together, I work with my kids. I just want something like for Dwan.
Yeah.
For me, something fun. I could just be crazy and funny and have a drink and curse a little bit and get everybody and just, real estate's so great. She's so wonderful. And then the money started coming in. So my initial
but you gotta show you though. Like they got to see Dwan behind, you know, Dwan.
Oh yeah. And I get on some days and I'm in, like, I don't have any makeup on, my hair's in, I've been working out, and I'm just like drinking one of my drinks. I'm like, okay, it's time to pod, you know, here we are. Yeah. And so it was not initially to make money, but I assumed, just with my experience in business, if people liked it and they opted into my site, people would buy things. So now I'm 2 years in right now, and I'm just now like, I'm looking with some people to start getting some merchandise and having, you know, some little fun things. And because I've had people say, hey, you need to have some merch. I'm like, okay, I guess I do. But now I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now I'm learning a whole new thing to add to the show. So every single thing for me has been a gigantic learning curve. I'm not like some millennial that just whips out and bought a soundboard and a microphone and knew how to do it all. Yeah. It's been a tremendous learning curve for me.
So the 997 sales, were they coming like from day one when you started? Was that like when they started, when you noticing that?
Coming in about the second or third month.
Okay. So it was like 90 days or so.
Go to dwanful.com, check out if you like anything, check out my products. That's all I say. I don't like, I hate to say this, but a lot of podcasts I listen to have so many commercials and they're so pitchy. And I always tell people, like, this is the no pitch zone. I hate being pitched. I don't like listening to something and at the end people try to sell me something. It's like, I feel it's like, if you want to sell me something, tell me in the beginning, hey, at the end of this, I want to sell you something. So I know, because I'm listening and I'm into it, and then all of a sudden it turns into a pitch. I personally feel offended.
Yeah.
And that's just me. It's like, you know, I hate that. So at the end of I have a page that has like, you know, give my intro, my quick story. Don't forget to tell them they get a couple free, like, you know, just so I make sure I don't miss something. And I literally just say, like, go to dwanbent.com. I have a bunch of great real estate investing programs. If you're, into that, check it out. Like, 2 sentences.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it started like a few sales and a few sales and a few sales. And I was like, which was a happy surprise for me because I didn't really know enough about podcasting to even know or think that people would buy things.
For sure.
And I know nothing about merchandise. So now I'm talking to this guy. I'm like, oh, for the love of God, just like make stuff for me and put it out there somewhere. Just don't make me do this. I don't know how to do this.
So we're getting towards the end of our time here, but I want to wrap up with if you could estimate, and I know this is, because it's hard to attribute, directly to a podcast sometimes, but if you could estimate how much money since day one to now that you've made from the podcast, what would your estimate be?
Well, for the things where I see like a $9.97 coming on a Tuesday, and I'm running no webinars, I've got no ads running, I've got nothing like that, I would say I'm somewhere between like 150 and 200,000.
Okay,
so over I'm in that range.
2 years.
Yeah, so I'm in that range. But from the people that opt into Dwanderful and then get on a webinar and then they purchase, I don't know.
For sure. Yeah, that's hard to tell.
I can attribute about almost 200,000 from people buying products, and I'm like, well, they have to come from the podcast because they're just randomly coming out of the middle of nowhere, and unless they just found my website and go, hey, I don't know nothing about her, I'll just buy something straight off the website, which people don't do. No one's going to drop $1,000 without knowing something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, you have a great story of somebody who started, with a bunch of experience, So somebody, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I could start a podcast and make 200 grand in 2 years, there's some give and take there, because Dwan started with, this kind of these courses that she already had made. She already had expertise in the field and all this kind of status as well. But it's definitely a great story of how you started this podcast to do something fun, and then it ended up being a great moneymaker for you as well. Is
that good? You interview people all the time. Like, where am I ranking in the throes of other people with the money and the numbers? And am I like up here or like down here in the dumps?
Yeah, well, it depends on how you rank it. I mean, because you could do like a median of everybody making money, and then it becomes a lot different than say an average, because you have the Joe Rogans of the world that are get a $30 million deal with Spotify. But the main thing is like, are you having fun doing it? Are you making a living doing it? And like, are you doing the parts that you like and not the parts that you don't like? So if you can make enough money doing a podcast and you hate the editing, to outsource the editing, and maybe it just brings you joy to do the podcast. I mean, that would be great for some people. I'm not here to status people like.
Oh no. You saw a lot of people, so I feel like for myself, I feel like I'm doing well. Now I don't edit mine. I just start off, I record it, and if I burp or sneeze or drink a snort out of my nose, I don't do any editing. Yeah. So I was like, I realized from the beginning to enjoy the podcast. I can't get caught up in all those little detail things like that, because I'm not a detail. I'm like, how some people are like big finger people and some people are detail people. Yeah. I'm not a detail person. So from day one, I decided I'm not going to edit. So if I blurt something out I wish I wouldn't have said, I'm just like, oh, well. And I one time, it was my birthday, so we all did like a shot of tequila, and I started coughing and like came out right out of my nose. And I was like, so I don't edit. Yeah. I just, whatever it is, I put the music on the front, the music on the back, and out it goes.
Awesome. Well,
but I'm having fun. And I guess if I could just give one piece of advice to people, because I'm in a couple Facebook podcast groups, and I see, and everyone is, and I see people say, I'm afraid what if no one listens. And I felt the exact same way, even with all my giant background, because a podcast is a completely different genre. It's not a seminar. It's not a live event. It's not being interviewed. It's a podcast. It's different. And for all the people that I see doing that, I'm like, you know what? Just start. And as long as you have fun, I think all the rest of it comes.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to make money, and it came, and I was like, hey, well, that's a really great thing. But even if I wasn't, that wouldn't stop me. Because it's fun for me. But if people are really nervous and they're too critical of themselves and they're doing it and the drudgery, like you said, they don't want editing or whatever. If you can't like pass out or pass on the things you don't like, I think the whole thing becomes a task.
Yeah. 100%.
Instead of like, whoop, whoop, I'm on a podcast today.
Yeah. Awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally agree. So, Dwan, if somebody wants to, learn more about you and real estate investing, let us know what social channels to follow you on, or where we can.
They can go to dwanderful.com, or they can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Dwanderful. And I just got with the program and started TikTok.
Okay.
Like 2 weeks ago.
TikTok at Dwanderful too.
Dwantastic.
Dwantastic. Okay.
I have like 4 TikTok videos. My daughter's like, listen, you got to do TikTok. I'm like, oh my God, another learning curve. So I'm finding out that all the things that are so easy for your generation are so difficult for mine.
Yeah, I wouldn't say TikTok's easy for me. Is it going well for you, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've got people following me and people writing funny comments. So I come on, I'm like, hey, I'm Dwan, your cool real estate investing mom. And I give out some real estate tips. I say, stay tuned for more real estate investing facts. And yeah, it's going good. People are listening. People are subscribing. My daughter has thankfully edited everything for me thus far, but she's like, you're going to have to learn how to edit. And I'm like, okay.
Outsource it.
I outsource my show notes. I outsource my editing. I even have something that like puts it up on the internet. I outsource everything because those are the things that, and I'm sure they're not daunting if you know them, but for me, it takes the fun out of it if I have to spend a bunch of time afterwards doing all these little things. So I do the
100%.
podcast. I make it fun. I say, send it here and go, okay, there you go. Put it out. Do whatever you're supposed to do. I got to get over here. Run some ads, send some emails. I just want to have fun.
Awesome.
I think make it fun.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the show, Dwan. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Jase. And thank you guys. And don't be afraid. Just do it. I started at 60. So if I can start in like, a later chapter of my life, all these people that are younger that are terrified, just do it.
Awesome.